welcome to Vegan Food Storage. We have a special guest today. Kaylee my daughter lives in Germany, and she has graciously consented to talk to us about food storage opportunities and mythologies and things like that in Germany, and just what it's like to try and build a self-reliant food storage over in Germany. So, Kaylee, one of the big myths, want to say hi? Sorry, I didn't mean to let you run you over. Sorry about that. So one of the big mythologies in the food storage community is, Germany specifically, is that it's illegal to store food. Is that true?
Not to my knowledge. I've never heard that before. I know plenty of people who kind of stockpile their pantries, mostly us Americans, because the Germans tend to shop multiple times a week. So instead of what typical Americans do, go out and just shop in bulk like on a Saturday or over the weekend, the Germans tend to take multiple trips throughout the week to the grocery store so that everything is fresh. And because they do that, their pantry spaces and kitchens in general just tend to be a lot smaller than what we're typically used to. So I've never heard that it's illegal. And I think that the biggest limitation there is probably just space, finding space to build up a food storage stockpile.
When I lived in Hong Kong, it was really hard to find. Everything is traditional fruits and vegetables, and meat too, obviously. But so it was all like you bought it like daily, basically, like you're describing. So it was very hard to find actually tinned, because it was British, tinned or canned food. Is that the same over in Germany, or is that easier to find now?
No, I think it's pretty easy to find. So I usually shop on the German economy on the weekends, and there's this one store that I go to, and it's pretty much like a Walmart supercenter. So they just have rows and rows and aisles of canned food and different kinds of pasta and all that kind of stuff that you could use to build up your food storage. You may not be able to find it in bulk, like, if you were to go to a Costco or something, or, and say find like a 50-pound bag of rice, you might not be able to find that, but you can, still find bags of rice and cans of fruits and vegetables and pasta and the typical stuff that you would if you were shopping here in the States. It might taste a little different and the brands might be a little different, but ultimately it's there.
I was just going to ask, did you, how long have you been in Germany?
About a year.
So did you find when you first got there that the food was different? I mean, like, I had to get used to like Swiss everything and British everything and trying to find out. I mean, some things were easy, like peas have a label that look like peas and stuff like that, but other things were really hard for me to like figure out.
I think that's true when you're talking more about the fresh stuff, like just going to the meat department and trying to figure out, is this beef or is this pork? I don't really know. Let's pull out Google Translate. But if you're just talking about, like dry food that you would typically use to build up your food storage, I think it's pretty easy to find that stuff, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Again, it might taste a little different because, if it's locally sourced, there's that. But I mean, otherwise you can walk down the aisle and clearly see there's rows of pasta.
Yeah.
And
have you ever noticed if there's like canning, like storage equipment, like because you're from, spent a lot of time in Utah, and so there's a lot of like canning equipment and those kinds of things. Is there that kind of stuff to store things in if you bought, bulk items like there is in the States, or do you not have that available to you, or have you not ever noticed?
I've not really noticed. I know that I've seen like some mason jars and things on the economy, but I don't recall seeing like pressure cookers or anything that you could use to, not pressure cookers, that's not the right word, like
pressure canners or
dehydrators
like
or things like that. Canner. I'm sure that they're available. I mean, Germany is just as much of a first world country as America is, and if you can't, maybe if you can't find it on the local economy where you're at, Amazon DE, which is just the Deutschland version of Amazon, ships stuff, and you can find everything on there. We found everything from our dining room table to other stuff on Amazon DE, and I'm sure you can find dehydrators.
What's
and
like the
things.
water situation like in Germany? Is it like it's like in Hong Kong? We could never we couldn't drink water out of the tap. It was actually purified and safe at the treatment plant, but by the time it went through like 300-year-old pipes, it was like not safe to drink anymore. And so we were constantly under a boil water, edict. And like if we ever went to a restaurant, you got like if you didn't drink tea, you would get like hot water, because you couldn't trust iced water or anything like that. Is it the same there in Germany or?
No, I drink tap water all the time. I haven't gotten sick yet. Knock on wood. But yeah, I drink tap water.
Is there
daily.
like can you get like bottled water and bigger things than bottled water?
Oh yeah, definitely. You get cases of water in gallon sizes, and actually, what's really popular there is just those 5-gallon jugs that you can find all over the place, and just go refill whenever.
So what do you think? You probably haven't, but have you talked to people like at church about whether or not they're storing food, or especially in Germany, where they've got a fairly recent history, really, when you think about it, like 50, 60, 70 years, where, people were like rationed and there were people going hungry and, after, World War II, is that still, have you ever talked to people about whether that's still kind of in their minds and that they should be stockpiling, food, or do people just like not seem to even, like here in America where they just kind of go, food, not a big deal?
Yeah, so I guess the people that I talk to, even the people from church, there have been a couple that do have their food storage, and they keep their food storage and they move it everywhere that they go across the world. So definitely props to them, because they're much more dedicated than like say I am, who's still working on their food storage. But I don't really see it as a concern from what I've talked to people, and I think it's just because stuff is so readily available. There's more selection in the German grocery stores than there is in the American grocery stores. And obviously part of that is probably actually being in Germany, that's going to be the case, but it goes and goes for miles and miles.
That would be interesting though. Maybe when you go back, if you have a chance, it'd be interesting to talk to people who are who are native German, and find out if there's a difference in attitude like there is here in the States. Like my mother was born and raised in the Depression era, so her family was really focused on making sure that they had, a stockpile, of food.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see if there's, but you go to like my brothers and sisters, or even their kids, my nieces and nephews, and food storage really isn't a thing, for them. But it'd be interesting to see if among the German population, if that holds true, for Germany for Germans as well. If like, the 80-year-olds that went through World War II, are more conscious of having, a stockpile of food versus people your age or people, younger.
I'll have to ask. I
Really
don't know, that hasn't been a
topic of
topic.
conversation.
No,
Jeez.
not as frequent. Yeah,
So what do you think would be the most, and then we'll wrap up, what do you think would be the most things that you could do living in Germany to get like a week's worth of food, or a month's worth of food, in your home? What do you think that, if you were going to set a goal of doing that stuff? What would you do first?
I think I would watch, and this may sound a little cliche, but I would probably say watch the sales, because in Germany, all of the grocery stores and like pretty much everything completely shuts down on Sundays, unlike here in America. So because they do that, most places have really good sales on Saturday because they're trying to get rid of stuff. And yes, it is usually on the fresh produce and the fresh meat and stuff. But oftentimes, just going to the grocery store, you'll find that they'll discount, other items for the same reason. just because they're trying to keep stuff moving off the shelves, and when you close down for an entire day, and then that takes an entire day out of your business week. So we've been able to find some pretty good deals just by doing that and knowing that that's a thing in Germany. And then for me, honestly, part of it is just the excitement of trying something new. Because the grocery stores there do have so much variety because they bring in foods from Italy and from Spain and from France and from all these places, and you can find it all there in Germany. So it's almost more exciting to go to the grocery store and say, hey, what do I want to try out this week? Like, oh, look, there's this new fancy Italian pasta. Let's try that. And maybe, you buy a couple extra boxes and, save it. So I think that's part of it too. That's what I've noticed anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they shut down for a whole day. You'd think that people would get in the habit at least of getting having a couple of days worth of, I can't imagine anything worse, than, not that it's food per se, but, saying to yourself, recognizing that you're almost out of toilet paper. And then you kind of go, oh yeah, I'll get there. And then something happens on Saturday and you don't get to the store. And then all of a sudden you have no toilet paper at all in the house. That's worse than not having food.
Yeah. And then you go to the grocery store and it's not there. And now you're running around trying to find it, which has happened before. Not with toilet paper, but with other things. And it's just as frustrating.
Well, anyhow, thank you so much for spending the time with us. And everyone, just because you live all over the world does not mean you cannot have food storage. Because you know why? Because you can always sleep on the floor, but you cannot eat furniture. So, that's your favorite saying in the world. It is. Anyhow, thanks so much for joining us, and just remember to start putting food by. See you next week.